Good evening. Thanks for joining us once again for another Cleveland Public Library 19 News The Next 400 digital discussion panel. Chris Tanaka, your moderator as usual. And as you can see, my guest tonight already on screen, Avery Ware. He's a familiar face for many of you. Also scheduled to join Jasmine, Burnett. Tonight we're talking about something that I can't wait to sit back and listen to what Avery has to say. Because last year, when we came together in June, we were having, Avery, a very earnest conversation about the intersection of Black and LGBTQ plus identities and cultures. In one short year, as the pandemic has passed and events start happening in person together and people are coming back, we have this intense commercialization of Juneteenth and Pride Month. And that's what we are discussing tonight. I think it's very important to note that even this Saturday, Avery himself is hosting a mixed Juneteenth celebration, properly titled A Black and Queer Liberation Celebration. So where is the line between authenticity and over-commercialization? Avery, let's dive right in. You're okay. Shy to meaningful discussions. How do you feel as a gay Black man when you see this oversaturation of rainbows and corporate pride announcements during the month of June?
Yes. You know me, Chris, so I speak pretty frank, pretty honest. To be completely honest, at this point in my life, and at this point where I'm in my activism and things like that, at this point, it just annoys me. Like, it just annoys me to no end. But this is also what people with sense for decades have been saying what would happen if these things became mainstream, right? Things like Pride and Juneteenth started as radical uprisings. Pride started as an uprising. Juneteenth was about a holiday that celebrated the end of enslavement in particular states, mainly Texas, right? And then has been adopted to other states, to other Black communities across the country, which is all fine and good. And the reason why a lot of us were not excited about Juneteenth being a national holiday, before it became a national holiday, it was like in discussions, right? The scuttlebutt was Juneteenth is going to become a national holiday. The president's going to make a national holiday last year. And it actually was made a national holiday on Juneteenth. So I think I was on stage at my event at Juneteenth when we got the news that it was now a national holiday. And we weren't excited about it. Our attendants weren't excited about it because we knew in the following years it would be commodified, corporatized, and just completely sanitized from its original meaning. So as an educator, it gives me more fuel to get back to the foundation, get back to the roots of what these holidays actually are. But for if nothing else, it just annoys me to like no end, because these holidays are not about corporatization. They're not about trying to get our dollars any way we can. But when we look at the country that we live in, it is a capitalist society. And the point of capitalism is it has to exploit a certain group in order for the ruling class, another group, to control everything, to make the money, to control the products and the profits of labor and all of that. So when you look at it from that lens, it makes sense. But we knew this would happen when Juneteenth became a national holiday. We knew these corporations would leech on and try to get as much money as they could by the commodification of it.
Yeah. I mean, I went in preparation for this discussion and looked up the largest employers in the state of Ohio. And I went to their social media pages to see what they have done. And I saw a lot of logo switching, saw a lot of rainbow branding. But when I looked on their social media posts and when I went to their web pages, I didn't find a lot of social messages about how else they're supporting the LGBTQ plus community besides flipping the logo.
Right.
Where is the money? Where is the action? And it seems even for a corporation or group of corporations, incredibly shallow, but also really transparent in its shallowness.
Right.
That this is just a grab.
Right.
I think I certainly align with you personally. Let me be the journalist and the devil's advocate and ask, as annoying as you say as this is it a necessary start in this social justice movement, a necessary step to have corporate allyship in whatever form it may take?
Yeah. I think very few things are black and white. But in this particular sense, I think it is black and white. I'm just going to say a flat out no.
Okay.
Yes. At least from my political perspective, from the way that I try to organize. I don't consider myself an organizer, but the way I try to organize around some of these topics, corporate buy-in is never the expectation, nor is it necessary. I don't need you to switch your logo in some vain support of people like me and my community. What I need is actually material resources for the most marginalized of us. So if you really about it, like if you really want to affect some real change and you don't just, it's not a quick cash grab, then we can have those conversations. But if this is just a surface level vein, let me say that I'm in support so I can maybe get some money out of it or get some either social or economic political capital off of it, then yes, I'll do it. But if it's not genuine, then what's the point, right? The way I try to the way my politics are set up is that again, corporate buy-in is not the goal. I don't believe I've made it, or I don't believe like we're on equal playing field if GM, just as an example, a big corporation, if GM says, we're celebrating Pride Month, we're celebrating Juneteenth, here's how we're doing it, we're going to change our colors, we're going to change our logo, we're going to give our employees a day off, that does nothing to change the material conditions of people who material conditions need to be changed, right? So that's what I'm looking for. The kind of that surface level support is not necessary for me. What we could do, what these corporations could do, is start by paying their employees a livable wage. Like we can start there, especially with the inflation rising at astronomical rates. Raise their income because you have it. Like you have it, so give it to them. Let's start there. Let's start by like housing the homeless. Let's start by feeding the hungry. Let's start by taking political action for universal health care. Like those are kind of the starting lines for where if corporations want to be involved, that's where they should be starting. Not changing your logo. That does nothing for us.
Yeah. Okay. You stole a question right out of my mouth when I said I was going to ask what is a good first step for corporations, and I think it's interesting when we look at Juneteenth and we look at Pride Month. I think there are different lessons that can be taught, right, based on shared experiences of oppression and othering that was done to the populations now being lifted up. And for Juneteenth, is it a day of service? What does it look like? For Pride Month, is it giving to supportive services? What does corporate responsibility and authentic involvement look like for both of the causes?
Yes. I'll start with Juneteenth since it's coming up on Monday or Sunday. I would say that, and this is going to sound like radical and so out there and like unreachable, unobtainable. But for me, corporate responsibility would need to be a complete restructuring of what corporation is and what that means to you. And again, that means with leveling the playing field. I forget the name of the CEO and I forget the name of his organization, but I see his face like in my mind. And what he does is he lowered his salary so he can pay all of his employees, I think it was $75K a year. Everyone across the board makes $75K. They all have a livable wage, right? And then they have like other benefits like healthcare and stuff like that. But they all make $75K a year no matter what they do, right? Yeah. For me, if we're actually about moving the needle a little bit more towards equity, it would have to be a completely restructuring from the top down, from the bottom up, a completely restructuring like that, because that is what's going to move the needle for this. It's not a one-off celebrate Pride. It's not a one-off celebrate Juneteenth. It's a completely restructuring of our society that puts people on a level playing field. Now, would that take time? Yes. But if you're asking me what corporate responsibility is, in my mind, that's what it is.
And that gentleman is Dan Price, and he owns and operates a credit card processing, third-party processing company in Seattle. Hey, our other scheduled guest, Jasmine Burnett, has now entered the room, so we want to bring her on. She's a consultant, organizer, activist, and she has some big news that we're going to announce too. Jasmine, thank you so much. Technology, sometimes there are hiccups in the way, but better late than never. Avery and I have already dove into this discussion about how Juneteenth and Pride Month have come to the fore, have really been thrust into widespread American consciousness in the past 2 years, and we are already seeing this over-commercialization of both. What do you observe? Avery said it annoys him to no end, and rightfully so, I believe. How do you react to this over-commercialization and commodification of blackness and queerness?
Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I absolutely love this topic, and I'm so happy to be here. What it brings to mind for me is that people think that commercialization and marketing on, you can see my whole like kind of boutique room that I have going in here. But what it does for me is it kind of divorces it from the long history of capitalizing off of Black bodies, off of queer bodies, off of trans bodies, off of women's bodies, which is the work that I'm very embedded in, and folks who have abortions. So, there is always something that folks are, whenever I say someone is a marketing employee comes into a social justice or an awakening that is connected to American consciousness around its relationship to race, its relationship to communities that have always been. But once we kind of identified ourselves and kind of settled into our identities, we were easily identifiable and separated from like being community with the broader society. So that is how we got othered. Identity is so important. And what it does is it makes you identifiable. When you are a person of color, you're clearly identifiable by your ethnic features. But, and then, you may be assumed to be queer or trans based on your presentation and somebody's their ignorance behind that. So, I feel like if it is connected, if it connects to the narrative that is the foundation of this country, which is oppressing bodies for profit, I think that we would, better understand why we're actually in this position with Juneteenth. We haven't really grown that much. We're making acknowledgments, and I think the acknowledgments are important. I think the spaces are important. I wish the connection to the monies that were introduced into these large corporations found a very clear through line to the communities that are impacted, which we're not really sure how that happens. I'm also concerned about, why they have all of this marketing and media and all of these ways to make money. And, in their C-suites at their corporations, how are, folks of color, Black folks, queer and trans folks, are they in your C-suite? Are they in your executive level leadership? Are they not just the folks who go and sit at tables at Pride or sit at tables at, a Juneteenth festival and represent your brand? So those are the types of investments I'm looking for. And that's the only thing that makes me annoyed about the commercialization is the lack of connection to the narrative and the lack of the through line to where the community receives the monies that are being kind of grossed from this marketing scenario. I don't even know what to call it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I love listening to you, and Avery brought up some good points as well before you came on. Last year when we got together, we talked about the importance of allyship and what it looks like and what people can do in this context, in the face of commercialization, Avery, what does allyship look like? Is it a boycott on products? Is it being more selective? Is it calling out things like the Pride Whopper and the Juneteenth watermelon salad from the Indianapolis Children's Museum for what they are? What is it? What's allyship look like in this context?
If you revisit our conversation from last year, I believe we talked about allyship in not being in name only, but in action. And I think that applies here too. So we can speak truth to, like, allies can speak truth to things. They can boycott certain products. I think there's a place for all of that. And I don't think allyship is a one-off. There's like no one way to be an ally. I think there are certain core principles of allyship, if you're going to call yourself an ally, that you have to adhere to. And I would employ allies to talk to some of those communities they want to be allies to and ask them what they need. Like, what do you need me to do as an ally? How do you need me to show up? And then let them lead the ship, let them lead the charge on how your allyship shows up for them. But I would say principally, allies need to stand in the gap. Not metaphorically, I'm talking about actually, realistically, physically, putting your body in front of marginalized people so they cannot be harmed if that's a situation that we're in. It looks like if you have disposable income, you contributing to some mutual aid funds. They're all over the place, all over social media. There are Black, trans people, queer people, homeless people of all identities, that need money directly in their bank account so they can live. Allyship looks like that. Again, it is actionable steps that allyship has to do. Like, calling things out and boycotting is great. I think there's a lane for that, but it can't be a one-off. We need to put some action behind what allyship actually is. But again, I would employ allies like, say here in Cleveland. Actually, Chris, I can use you as an example if you don't mind. Before our first conversation last year, you called me on the phone and we had a really good conversation. But part of the conversation was you asking me, and not in a way that you're putting all the labor on me, but you're asking me as someone in a more position of power what you can do for someone like me and how that allyship will look like. And then we talked about it, and I told you what I needed, and you did a lot of it, right? I think that's a core value of allyship. So wherever your community is, wherever community you're embedded in, I would say you go to those people and say, what do you need from me as an ally? What can I do?
Yeah. Jasmine?
Yes. Ooh, I love this question so much. I love all your questions, Chris. And Avery, you set us up so well. I think that allies, I just feel that people can't call themselves allies. I think that people say, I'm an ally because I am, and I believe these things. But if you can't tell me as an ally, if you're trying to be my ally, if you cannot tell me of a person in your family who has felt comfortable enough sharing that experience, a shared experience or a similar experience with you, about their story and their lives and how you can impact them. If you don't have that connection just in your circle, then I don't really know where allyship lives. It can't live outside of, your home, your realm of influence first. It has to live there first. It starts with the people who you love, and then it branches out. Then you can carry that love out, carry, the curiosity out, and be informed as you carry it out, because you have them, you're in community very directly with someone in your family who has experienced or their friends or just something. Like, you have to do, that's the work that allies have to do. You know what? Let me see if anybody in my family is queer or trans. Let me see what the experience is of a family member who can hardly pay for their college education or pay their bills or eat, or, are unhoused, or have a hard time paying their bills and have a hard time asking family who make them feel bad about that. That is what, we have to get inside of our family structures and not deny that these identities and experiences exist very close in, and not just, those people over there who I want to go help and be an ally to and do some volunteer service for. No, it's a much more intimate walk than just how you can connect with people outside of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It really is inward work, and it does start in people you're directly in community with, right? Sometimes that looks like, because I'm a gunkle, uncle and auntie combined, and my babies are still little, but if at one point that they were queer or had some identity that my very Christian family was maybe not accustomed to or aware of, for me, allyship would look like making sure that my babies were safe and able to have those conversations with some of those other family members who need to have those conversations with. Right. So I love that point, because it's not just about like out in the community, like just out there. So a lot of times that's right in your direct, like 1 degree separated folks that you are like either blood related to or into marriage or something like that. Like it's very inward. It starts close to home for sure.
And you know what, if I may share a proud dad moment, you know, we preach at home, Jasmine, what you were talking about is starting with our family unit and an acceptance of individuals for who they are, not what they look like or who they love. And we always preach love is love. And you know, we have 2 young boys, 9 and 6. And so when my older niece got married to her wife, and we came and we met up with them and we said, look, Julie just got married to Tamara. Normal as the day is normal. And that's the way it should be.
Yes.
Because it was taught that this is what love looks like. It's between 2 individuals. It doesn't have to be a man and a woman. And yeah, I couldn't agree more, obviously, with what you said. And I feel thankful and proud that I think we're on the right path here, that it starts with family, and it starts with kids and preaching and teaching and living, and acceptance of individuals.
Absolutely.
Avery, I want to ask you about an event coming up on Saturday that you have. And earlier in our conversation, we talked about this delineation between marketing and authenticity. Mixed Juneteenth, a Black and Queer Liberation Celebration. It's going to be from noon to 6 p.m. at Black Punks Press, 4701 Perkins.
Yeah.
Tell me about it and what people can expect from the event, and also really what you hope to convey with hosting this.
Right. To answer 2 of your questions, I think what I hope to convey is some of that delineation between authenticity and, I don't know, commercialization, right? And I think that started with intention. Me and the other people on my leadership team, we intentionally cultivated a space that was for Black and queer people, although everyone is invited, but specifically for Black and queer people from a Black queer feminist lens, right? And that's a lot of words, and it's very complicated, but when you show up, you'll see what I'm talking about. And that's what I hope to convey. We want to capture the true spirit of what Juneteenth started out, which was, and for the purpose of time, I won't get into what Juneteenth actually is, but if you show up on Saturday, we'll let you know. But it actually started as a holiday called Jubilee Day, which was a day where formerly enslaved people got together on the anniversary of when they were told that they no longer had to be enslaved. And they celebrated through food, through community, through dancing, through all that. Started in Galveston, Texas. And again, as I said earlier, has branched out to other Black communities across the country. But that's what we want to capture, that true kind of liberatory celebration spirit, but also on top of that, some education, some community work. So we have free community resource that'll be there. All of our vendors are local vendors from the community. All our performers are local performers. So we are not looking to capitalize off of this. We're not looking to make a whole lot of money. A lot of the money that we raised came directly from the community, and is now going back into the community. So it's kind of this cyclical, make kind of a mutual aid effort that like you give us money, we give you this, and you leave feeling edified and feeling joyous and feeling great. So that's what we want. That's our intention. It is free of police presence. That is also intentional. We have our own private security. Huey P. Newton Gun Club will be there. They are open carry, so they will be armed. I try to make that as clear as possible. We just don't want anyone to be shocked when they see people walking around with guns. But that is our armed security that they have there, and their firearms are visible. Something I was worried about, but they were there last year. We all felt safe and comfortable. So that's what we hope to That's what we hope to communicate to our community. This joyous, liberatory, educational experience, while you also feeling safe, also feeling comfortable, also feeling seen, and knowing this space is specifically cultivated and curated for you.
Yeah, well, I think having security on hand is simply acknowledging the fact that there are bad actors, no matter where you live, as evidenced by the arrest of 31 white men jammed into the back of a U-Haul truck in Idaho this past weekend, getting ready to cause riot at a Pride Month festival. So there's certainly no criticism on my end. Jasmine, you have some big news to announce on Juneteenth as well. I want to get to that in a moment, but one of Avery, the Cavs still going to be there representing with the Cavs truck coming up to your event?
Yes, they will be there. They're only going to be there from 2 to 4 because there's a lot going on in the city that day. And the Cavs are so graciously trying to hit everything, and again, that graciously wanted to be a part of ours too. So they will be there from 2 to 4. So I don't know if people are planning their days accordingly, but the Cavs will be present at Mixed Juneteenth from 2 to 4 p.m.
So before I jump in with Jasmine and ask her about her big announcement, let me ask you both: when an organization like the Cavaliers openly supports the cause authentically, you could say, look, they've got a lot of fans. They might lose some fans by supporting you. But in this instance, when a corporation steps in like that, or an organization, I should say, steps in like that, is there clout there? Does it make you feel? How does it make you feel when an organization like the Cavs can step in and say, yes, we support you?
Yes, there could be clout. We have to use our discernment when dealing with large organizations and corporations and what their goal actually is. The unique thing about Mixed Juneteenth and our team is that because the Cavs are not the first kind of big organization that approached us and wanted to collaborate in some way, shape, or form. The thing that we do and that we're proud of is that when big corporations, big organizations want to be a part of Mixed Juneteenth, you kind of have to fall in line. There's a certain protocol that you have to follow, and that's all that surrounds our intentional planning around it and staying true to our values and our mission. So if we don't feel that you are earnestly in support of these mission and these values, we're going to respectfully decline your involvement.
Wow.
But the Cavs approached us, and we gave them delineations on what we expect from them, and they said, yes, we hear you, we got it, we're going to do it. Great. So we was like, okay, now you can be a part of this. There are other organizations in the city who I won't name that we have approached the same way, and they have respectfully declined and said that's not a part of our vision, that's not what we represent. Okay, that's great. We can separate mutually in knowing that we hold two separate visions. And we can speak true to that and move on amicably. So there could be clout there, but we combat that by saying these are our mission, this is our vision, these are our values. We need you to adhere to that in very specific ways. And if you don't, fine, you just want to be a part. But if you do, you're more than welcome.
Very cool. Jasmine, how does it make you feel when you hear about organizations like that moving in?
Well, I think that it's a beautiful display, when we've kind of established that we can trust each other in the ways that Avery has spelled out that they do with Mixed Juneteenth, and how that partnership, can either flourish or transition based on whether or not we're values aligned, is what I like to say. So, for me, it's more of what happens when it's not cute to be in that space. I work in the political realm, and my work is reproductive justice. And right now, the work to dismantle privacy for all bodies and abortion access for pregnant bodies, and bodies that have the potential to become pregnant, is really what I'm embroiled in the most beautiful ways. And so, what I'm seeing now is it's always nice when people are running for office or need to build a particular constituency support in a certain area or among a certain group. There's always time and space and resource for that. However, when our backs are against the wall and some actual decisions need to be made that actually benefit our cause and support us in doing things that provide services to the community, there's so many limitations and so many excuses. So I'm kind of, show up when it's hard.
Oh, I love
Don't
that.
show up when it's only cute. Don't show up when it's cute. Always cute. Trust, because look at Avery. Avery is always fly, and you can see it's very lush over here. And so we're going to keep it cute regardless. But, don't, I feel like sometimes corporations, politicians, people who have to influence in that way, they kind of treat us like the side chick or the side person. It's like, oh, it's nice when you can be my arm candy and I'm traveling and not with my primary person. But when I go back home, I'm going to kind of embody those same values that my maybe conservative religious family at home has, even though I was just out playing around with you and using you as arm candy. So those are the things that I think I rub up against when we're in partnership with folks who, don't really have as much to lose as people who are on the ground.
Right.
That's so powerful. Yeah, what an incredible analogy. Okay, so Juneteenth, you have planned very intentionally to launch a new venture. So you're excited about it. I love it. The platform is yours. Juneteenth, what can we expect from Jasmine Burnett?
What you can expect is I am launching my consulting practice, my consulting firm, Black Feminist Advisors, and I am launching my new website. I have grown my team. We have, there's 5 of us now. And they're like, everyone is kind of, virtually in their own universe. But I just want to shout out my assistant, Corinne, who just holds me down and holds me together. And all that we're creating together. So they're an amazing human. So Black Feminist Advisors is a boutique consulting firm, and we design peacekeeping strategies and tactics for criminalized issues, people, and communities. So everything from like cannabis legalization to abortion access and everything in between. That is how we hold work. What that work looks like is we do board and organizational development. This includes like assessments, leadership coaching, managing kind of recruitment, retention processes, work planning, and board skills development. And on the organizational development side, we do like federal and state compliance things, administrative strengthening, conflict transformation, which is really huge right now because when your work is being attacked, the conflicts kind of erupt. We do team building, issue-based strategy, messaging. We also do leadership coaching where I offer 3, 6, 9, and 12-month packages. And I provide facilitation for a variety of groups looking to be more values aligned and operationalize those values. So very excited to be launching into this work, to be launching at a time in which the issues that I hold are deeply criminalized and are really inside of major indicators for mass incarceration and violence, for, where resources are being influenced in terms of supporting law enforcement and what that means when people who are getting services are then now being criminalized for getting those services and may potentially go to jail. So, there's a conversation that we need to be having around what this means and how this is a bit of a marathon that we're in right now. Roe v. Wade is, really in a precarious space right now. We've not heard anything from the Supreme Court, and we know that this is not just about abortion access. We know that it is about privacy across the board, which means it's going to affect queer and trans people too, and who cannot get pregnant or are not able to get pregnant. So it is not just about pregnancy. It is about livelihood, and it is about living more humane lives. And we cannot get the work done if we're in conflict with each other. So as you can tell, I have no problem addressing the conflicts head on. I like to throw the grenade in the room and be like, okay, let's tidy it up, see what we can salvage here, because we have so much at stake. Our lives are at stake, our communities are at stake, and people are counting on us. And I'm here to show up. I love my work and I love the people who I work with. And, our work is for all intents and purposes, very dangerous because people who are oppositional are very violent. So we are not bringing violence to this table. We are bringing, wanting people to have access, wanting people to live more humane lives, wanting to map human rights into the consciousness of the world. That is what we're bringing to the table. So join me. Come to my website on June 19th. There will be opportunities for you to meet with me if you'd like to do that. And we can discuss what your needs are for your organization, your corporation, your academic institution, the tools that we design. I have a through line through all institutions because systems are systems and they need to be changed.
Yeah. I can say this from the center of my soul. Both of you, your energy, your personas, they are like the backgrounds of both of your rooms. They explode with color and virtue. And every time we speak, I'm uplifted and I'm honored, and I can't wait to work with you more frequently in the future and improve my own allyship to both of you as individuals and your causes that you hold so dear. But wow, just another great conversation. Thank you both so much. So once again, you heard Jasmine's Black Feminist Advisors consultation firm going live on Juneteenth. That falls on a Sunday this year.
Yep.
The day before, Saturday, Mixed Juneteenth happening right in Cleveland, a Black and queer liberation celebration from 12 to 6, 4701 Perkins. And live the life you want to live in being an authentic ally. Thank you both again so much. For Avery, Ware, Jasmine, Burnett, the Cleveland Public Library, and us at 19 News, I'm Chris Tanaka. This has been another digital discussion. Have a great evening and have an impactful weekend this weekend. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Avery.